Welcome to Redtastic. Story 1. My name is Emily, 22 female, and I was adopted at the age of 4 by Hardy Smith, 54 male, and Lily Smith, 49 female. When I was 12, I started living with Lily's mom, Rosemary, 68 female, who I call Grandma because my adoptive parents didn't want me anymore. It wasn't always like that. Before I was adopted, Hardy and Lily had been trying for a child for over 6 years. They gave me a loving and happy childhood. They made me feel like a little princess, showering me with so much attention and gifts. We had wonderful weekends filled with fun, and they always reminded me of how blessed they were to have me. I genuinely felt like the luckiest girl in the world. However, when I was 9, Lily got pregnant and gave birth to my baby brother. At first I was excited, having wished for a sibling for as long as I could remember. But soon it became evident that my adoptive parents were increasingly focused on my brother, and I felt left behind. I understood that parents with a newborn had their hands full, so I did my best to help out and take care of myself. As time passed, I ended up becoming a sort of maid, forbidden from being near my brother and relegated to doing all the chores. Despite the neglect, I convinced myself that this was the norm for a big sister, even though they yelled at me and punished me if I wasn't able to finish my chores quickly. On my 10th birthday, my adoptive parents forgot about me entirely. They left with my brother for a little family time, and they didn't even remember it was my birthday. I spent the day alone watching TV and eating cereal, thinking it was all part of the adjustment to a new family dynamic. But the situation worsened as the months rolled by. One night, I got sick with the flu. My adoptive parents refused to take me to the doctor, claiming I was just faking it for attention. I was so sick, I had to lie in bed all day, feeling miserable while they played with my baby brother, trying to make him say Mama and Dada. That day, I realized that I had become a secondary figure in their lives. My place as the adopted child became painfully clear, and I would often cry myself to sleep listening to them sing lullabies to my brother, as they once did for me. My adoptive parents missed many important events in my life, like my school talent show, my first ever dance recital, and my first swim meet. My grandma was the only person who liked me, and I would cry each time she left after a short visit. When I turned 12, they told me that they wanted me to stay with grandma for a few months. I wasn't surprised one bit. In fact, I was relieved. I loved Grandma, and I could tell she loved me like I was a real granddaughter. I didn't even ask them why or put up a fight. I went into my room, packed my things, and waited. After I moved in with my grandma, I kept trying to take care of all the chores. She sensed something was wrong, so I told her about how Hardy and Lily had treated me. Grandma was furious and confronted them, though she tried to keep it discreet. I overheard a conversation between Grandma and Lily where Lily admitted to no longer feeling a connection with me and suggested I would be better off with Grandma. Grandma chose to sever ties with them afterwards. She said she would have nothing to do with such heartless people, and we never talked about them. When I discovered my passion for swimming, Grandma was my biggest cheerleader. I always had this nagging fear that she might stop loving me one day, like my adoptive parents did. But it's been 10 years now, and she still continues to give me forehead kisses, cooks amazing meals for me, and takes care of me. All I ever wanted was to make her proud and repay her for all her kindness. A month ago, my wish came true when I won the state swimming championship, making headlines as no one from our small town had ever achieved such a feat. I didn't fail to dedicate my success to Grandma, thanking her for being the best family a girl could ask for. A week later, Hardy and Lily reached out to me. I was taken aback and a bit skeptical, but they claimed they missed me and wanted to make amends. They acknowledged their mistakes and invited me for dinner. I was torn between holding on to my anger and wanting a happy ending, but I couldn't deny the fact that I missed them and my baby brother too. I eventually convinced Grandma to let me travel to see them, and she reluctantly agreed. The dinner was elaborate. They mentioned that my brother wouldn't be joining us for dinner as he was in a summer camp. It was a bit awkward at first, but I ended up talking and laughing more than I expected. I thought my relationship with my adoptive parents was gradually improving. But the next day, after I left their house, I stumbled upon a post online in which my adoptive parents claimed to be the driving force behind my success. I couldn't believe it. They even posted pictures of our dinner and captioned it as, "Great parenting brings out great kids." They dug up some of my old childhood pictures for extra dramatic effect. I was too stunned to speak. There were countless comments from strangers online congratulating them as amazing parents and role models, even to an adopted child. Hardy and Lily soaked up the applause, replying with a string of thank yous and eagerly agreeing to interviews with news channels, emphasizing their dedication to their children. At that moment, I couldn't restrain myself. I posted a lengthy message on Facebook refuting every single thing they said. I hadn't intended to share the extent of how poorly Hardy and Lily had treated me before, but their deceit in inviting me for dinner to gain attention pushed me over the edge. They were only using me to chase clout and gain popularity. In the post, I talked about how I was neglected by my adoptive parents and how my grandmother had raised me by herself. I also talked about how they were now trying to take credit for my success, but I decided not to mention their names, hoping they would get the message. My post went viral and it caused a lot of controversy. People were outraged that my adoptive parents had treated me so poorly. Despite not mentioning their names, it was clear who I was referring to, and I received support for speaking out against their behavior. It's been less than 5 days since I made that post. Now, Lily and Hardy have been calling me, pleading with me to take down my post. They claim it will damage their relationship with their son, as people are concerned about potential abuse. They wanted me to clarify that I wasn't referring to them. I am torn between removing the post to save their face in society, especially considering they adopted me, and bringing more attention to the issue of neglect. Update: it's been over a week and I refuse to take down my post. Hardy and Lily called me this morning again and Lily broke down while begging me on the phone. I let it all out, recounting those nights I cried myself to sleep and the times I lay in bed with a fever, only for them to think I was seeking attention. To my surprise, Lily spat back, accusing me of being an ingrate. I hung up the call and took my time to craft another message online about child abuse and neglect. This time I mentioned Hardy and Lily's full names and promptly blocked their numbers. My grandmother has been more than helpful during this ordeal, providing me all the moral support I need. You're not the a-hole, OP. Hardy and Lily are the a-holes. They are selfish and horrible people. I see why your grandma decided to cut ties with them. They're also users. They used you to fill in the void they felt when they didn't have a child. They used you again to promote themselves as great parents to strangers and the internet when they're anything but that. They don't care about you or your feelings. They dumped you right after they got their child, like you weren't human and like you didn't have feelings. Thank goodness for your grandmother. If it wasn't for her, I don't even want to think about what would have happened to you. You're not the a-hole for showing the world that they are bad people. Take it as them getting the consequences of their actions. Story 2. For context, my sister and I grew up relatively poor. When I was 6, our mom took a promotion and moved 3 hours away. We found out in our adult life she had been hoarding her money and giving our alcoholic father a small allowance to raise us. With his addiction problems, it left us minimal money for essentials. By the time I was 16, we were technically on our own and were ransacking dumpsters to feed myself and my sister. I'm now in my late 30s, have a successful career and live quite comfortably. My sister is also well off now. My wife and I have a great relationship. I've worked to stop some of my old habits from my upbringing. Some of my penny-pinching techniques, my wife graciously ignores and lets me save our money where I can. However, there's one issue: we can't always find a compromise. I can't handle when food is thrown out. Our daughter, 12, wanted chickens last year. That ended up being a good idea since our table scraps would go to them instead of being wasted in the trash. For the record, I hate when my wife shops at Costco. She buys too much for our family, which creates a lot of waste. I've asked her to at least donate what we don't eat or give it to me and I can drop it off to a homeless camp near my job. She promised to buy less quantity, but that didn't last because she doesn't like grocery shopping more than once a week. Last week, I came home and found a sealed pack of lettuce, 1 whole cucumber, an entire loaf of bread, and potatoes in the trash can outside. The lettuce was expired but looked fine. The bread was also expired but had no mold. The potatoes had eyes but weren't green or rotten yet. I went inside and started on dinner. I grilled chicken, which was the only item not from the trash. I made a salad and added the cucumber and used the bread to make croutons. And finally, I made mashed potatoes. We all sat down to eat. My wife mentioned how great the food was. I told her it was what she had thrown out earlier that day. She was completely mortified and grossed out. I told her I washed everything off before cooking it, but she said that didn't matter. My point was, if the food was good enough for us to eat, it should have not been thrown out. At bare minimum, she could have given it to our daughter to take to the chickens. She argued back that I should have taken it from the trash and to the chickens, not to our table. She was irritated with me, fearing we all would have food poisoning or something, but none of us got sick from the food. She said regardless it was wrong for me to prove a point in that manner, and borderline abuse to serve the family food from the trash. I don't really see what I did wrong. There are starving people in the world, and for us to throw out perfectly fine food just doesn't sit right with me. Am I the a-hole? OP, the problem is lack of knowledge or consent. Your family didn't consent to eating food out of the trash. You don't get to just decide for them. And trash cans are gross. They could have, and probably do have, bodily fluids, rotting food, medicine, etc., and usually aren't cleaned between each use. There's a chance of you and your family getting sick over this, which isn't worth proving a point. Also, stop tricking your partner. Just stop it. Communicate openly and transparently like adults who care about each other and care about honest communication. Now for some comments. You're the a-hole for how you're approaching the subject and the unresolved trauma. If you don't want food waste, you and your wife need to sit down and make a meal plan. And if she doesn't want to grocery shop more than once a week, why can't you shop once a week as well? You're putting the onus of your pet peeve onto her, instead of proactively avoiding it yourself. Everyone sucks here because it's clear from throwing out unused, unopened items that the wife is buying more than they need and throwing it out instead of donating it. Food waste is unacceptable. Having seen the news reports of activists who pull out pounds and pounds of perfectly good food, from grocery store trash bins, I am unable to say whether what OP did was dangerous or not. But even if it was, that doesn't make buying too much food and throwing it out instead of donating it okay. All food from the trash was inspected and washed, exactly what one should do after shopping at the grocery store. Expiration dates are not federally or locally mandated process, except baby formula. NPR did a full story this month on expiration dates as a suggestion, and manufacturers want you to dispose of food so you buy more. You did not abuse your family. You two do not agree on this principle. Take what you'll eat and eat what you take. Yes, your childhood likely shaped you to be conscientious of this topic. Story 3. I, 26 female, bought a hoarder house back in May 2018. It is a big 6-bedroom, 4.5 bathroom house. When I bought it, the contract stated that I take ownership of the house and everything in it. The lady who owned it died, and her heirs could not deal with the stench and literal amount of junk and waste in it. You could only open the door not even 8 inches. And some rooms had the junk filling them wall to wall and floor to ceiling. Well, it took me these last 4 years to finish cleaning, fixing and updating it. While doing the cleaning, I made sure to check everything before throwing it out. Ended up with more than 20k of money, some nice jewelry and antique furniture, and finally a stunning 40s style, lace-covered wedding dress. This woman took care of that dress until she couldn't anymore, and it took just some minor work to restore it. I currently don't have a partner, but I decided that it would be the dress I will be wearing if I ever get married. While doing the cleaning, I reached out to the heirs to pass on some pictures and mementos. Christmas personalized ornaments, some kid artwork, etc. And because of that, I had one of them, 30s female, in my Facebook friends list. After repairing the dress, I put it on with the jewelry and posted a pic on Facebook. Well, this woman saw it and asked for the dress and heirlooms back. I refused to give them back, and legally they can't do anything. Also, if it meant that much to them, they should have cleaned the house on their own, not sell it to me. Now she and her all family are calling me out on social media. Am I the a-hole? Now for some comments. One of my clients has a hoarder in a family and developed a double eye infection after cleaning out part of the kitchen. It was so bad that when I saw her a week later, it looked like she had been punched. The physical and emotional load that you took on to clean out that house is overwhelming. There's a reason this family didn't want to clean it out themselves. You took it on and now you get to enjoy the treasures you found. Not the a-hole. It's a lot to clean a hoarder's house. They could have hired a service if they were mentally unable to do it, but instead they dumped it on someone else who paid them to take the house and all that's in it. If they cared about the items, they should have offered you money or asked you to keep an eye out. It's yours. You did the work. I don't care how cheap you got the house. It probably doesn't even out like someone said because hoarding houses are disasters. Simply put, and it takes a lot to clean and restore them. Not the a-hole. Recovering hoarder here. Legally, you are in the right. Morally, you are also in the right. I would have someone who cared enough to restore and respect the items to have them. You saw the beauty in them, as did she. You didn't just chuck it all in a dumpster. Take them, wear them, be happy to honor the original owner. Her family did not view these things as anything but a hassle.